we're just going to move straight to UNESCO and the ideas that these people have for our future. Basically, UNESCO was founded for the purpose of bringing about a global government, global socialism, and global humanism. This was never really a secret. If you read their publications, they're actually quite frank about it. The first Secretary General of UNESCO, and UNESCO is the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. So their job was to get involved in education, get involved in so-called science, get involved in the culture, and try to change it, and try to bring about what the first Secretary General, Julian Huxley, described as political unification in some sort of world government. Obviously, if we're going to have a world government, we're not going to have an independent United States anymore. That should go without saying. In 1949, UNESCO put out a series of pamphlets, and they said schools needed to be used to combat family attitudes. Today, UNESCO runs all kinds of global education programs, education for sustainable development. Those of you who've heard the term sustainable development probably know what they're talking about here. It means taking away all your freedom, taking away all your rights, and making you into a sustainable human with no rights who just works for the collective and does what the government says. They also have education for world citizenship, where they're training your children to become global citizens in this new order that they're moving toward. UNESCO also has training manuals for teachers all over the world. They have training manuals that push sex education in kindergarten. They want to teach 5-year-olds things that I won't even describe because I don't want to offend anybody in the audience. They also promote the whole word method. They call it the balanced approach, because first you memorize a big list of words, and then later they add in a little sprinkling of phonics after your brain is already damaged, after you're already illiterate, and so it's worse than useless. It's atrocious. They promote humanism openly. They promote multiculturalism, and so on and so forth. They also have what they call the World Core Curriculum. This was developed by UN Under-Secretary General Robert Mueller. He was a very bizarre character. He called himself a disciple of Alice Bailey, who was the founder of the Lucifer Publishing Company. She's a bigwig at the UN. She's still very influential. She would invite these spirits to come into her body. She called them ascended masters. For those of you who believe the Bible, it should be very obvious what these are. And they would supposedly dictate these books to her about education in the New Age and how we need to get rid of the heresy of separateness, you know, the idea that Christians need to be holy and separate from the world. So she was a very bizarre woman. And Robert Mueller was a very bizarre man. He thought the UN was a divine institution that was going to lead us toward this great evolution of humankind. And so they want the World Core Curriculum taught in every school in the world, and they say so. The World Core Curriculum must teach the child to see himself as a part of the greater whole, is what Robert Mueller said. The current head of UNESCO is actually an actual communist from the Bulgarian Communist Party, Irina Bokova, with strong ties to the communist regime that enslaved Bulgaria. They murdered an estimated 222,000 people, and now she's next in line, supposedly, to lead the United Nations. She's been described as the front runner to be the next Secretary General of the broader United Nations. And she just released a column, actually, a few weeks ago, where she says they're going to use the schools to change the values of your children, to change the beliefs of your children, and to get us all to become sustainable in the new sustainable world order that they're building. Arnie Duncan thinks this is all wonderful. He calls UNESCO his global partner, and you can find this on the Department of Education's website. He calls them his global partner in the cradle to career education reform agenda. And they do want your children from the time they're in the cradle, and then they want to decide what career they're going to go to. He brags that the schools are now being used to create green global citizens. And that education, he says, is a weapon to change the world. Did you know that education was a weapon to change the world? Do you send your children to school to become green global citizens? If you're like me and probably most parents, no. You know, it doesn't matter if you're liberal, conservative, libertarian, communist. You send your kids to school to learn how to read and to learn how to write and to learn how to do math. And they're not doing any of those things. They're doing the opposite of those things. They're indoctrinating them, they're creating lifelong reading disabilities, and they're dumbing down the children. And they want to take this to the global level. One quick quote about straight from a United Nations document about this education for sustainable development, just to kind of show you what they really have in mind. They don't have education in mind. They say, generally, more highly educated people who have higher incomes consume more resources than poorly educated people who tend to have lower incomes. In this case, more education increases the threat to sustainability. So if your children become more educated, they're going to be less sustainable. So how do you feel about that? Hopefully not good. So what about the future? Where are we going from here? Well, it's kind of up to us, right? UNESCO might get their way. Bill Gates signed an agreement with UNESCO in 2004 to promote master global curriculum and so on. He's also the chief financier of Common Core, surprise. He's also a big funder of the UN Population Fund that participates in forced abortions in China, according to testimony in Congress. Big funder of Planned Parenthood. So, you know, that's one route we could go, a global totalitarian education system to dumb down all of our children and, you know, quite literally enslave humanity. Or, as free people, we could take back control of our country, we could take back education, we could promote church schools, home schools, private schools, schools like FPE, co-ops, free market schools. You know, the wonders that we could go toward if we just set our minds to it would be amazing. We could have a renaissance of real education, we could restore proper reading instruction with phonics, we could stop Common Core, and really get the government out of education, especially the federal government. They have no business being involved in education, much less UNESCO. And if we don't do something about this, the consequences are going to be severe. So that's pretty much all I have to say. I thank you very much for coming and for the opportunity to speak with you, and I hope you found it interesting. Thanks.